Hey, it's me. You're not, nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with the device. I am by myself. They have left me alone here in Jackson. Chuck is down in New Orleans doing big things with Mardi Gras, and our sister Tonya is all the way in Cuba. And so big shouts out to Tonya doing big things. And we still holding down for the nightcap. The show must go on. So I'm not gonna hold you guys too long. I'm gonna bring the rest of the guests. We got a packed house tonight. We represent hard. We represent Tougaloo hard. We got a lot of good folks doing a lot of great things. And I always want to remind everybody this show is rated black and uncensored. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. And we're gonna tell it like a TI is. Today, we're going to bring out our own personal mental health expert, all the way in the big city of Chicago. We're going to bring out Dr. Fred. We got Dr. Fred in the house. He representing. I think he might have on a Q shirt. I can't see. I can't. There it is. There it is. There it
Mr.
is.
Q Sci-Fi.
Big shout out to all the D9 and everybody else that's watching and checking us out. So Fred, you know how this thing goes. We're gonna dive into the show. What's the groove? I just told you DJ George Chuck is all over the place. He's down there in Mardi Gras. The entertainment check-in TBC, she is making big things happen. And she's just not in Cuba, just hanging out. You know, if Tonya is traveling, that means she's singing, she's performing, and she's always letting folks know that she represent her roots for Mississippi and Louisiana. Um, so we're going to dive into the mental health minute. Fred, I want to pick your brain on this. The mental health minute for today is be your best you. You must know who you are and whose you are. Um, Understanding that be your own weird. It's okay to be different. Embrace the talents that come with the thinking outside the box. Focus on making you better without losing who you are. So that's something. We got the Better Me in 23 challenge going on, and what we're encouraging folks to do is not trying to be evolved and to be somebody else, but to be the best version of yourself. And we just encouraging people to um, be you. And that's what we're encouraging folks to think outside the box. Don't let folks challenge you. Don't let folks make you feel uncomfortable by being who you are. Be you. All right. So I got Marcus. Where Marcus go? He got to come back. We got a couple folks on there, but Fred, introduce yourself to everybody. Let them know who you are and how you got connected with us, and we're gonna take it on up.
Okay. Well, I'm Dr. Frederick Smith. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I am currently licensed to practice psychology in both the state of Georgia and the state of Illinois. And I currently work for a company called ThriveWorks Counseling, where I do full-time therapy, offer full-time therapy services, which includes individual and couples and family therapy. And then I also work uh, actually will be starting on Monday. I'll be doing part-time psychological testing and neuropsychological testing at LifeStance Health. And so, of course, ThriveWorks is a nationwide company. It's in about 46 different states. And then LifeStance, of course, is also another nationwide company, and it is in about 40 states.
Okay. So Fred doing big things. So we're doing something a little different for this show. We got a couple other folks that are going to join us in this conversation. So when you'll be able to explain it to people about more about psychology, but also we're going to go more in depth about forensic psychology, and you're going to kind of give us a backstory on how you get to that point. We want to get some different perspectives and get folks to ask some questions. Um, you know that a lot of people are thinking but won't ask, right? And we got a couple of brothers that's from different professions that can talk about some of the things that they saw and ask them questions and be able to pick your brain. And hopefully, by them picking your brain, it might help someone that's watching. Um, but you want to explain to, I'm gonna bring these brothers out, and then you can go in depth and try to explain to us how we got to forensic psychology. So we have the Renaissance man himself. When we tell folks about be your best you, this brother don't know any other way. He might have on some work boots and a long sleeve shirt, bush hogging, and next thing you know, he got on a hat with a feather in it, and he's up there singing, or he might be bartending, or might be whatever he may do. But we're gonna call out our brother the Renaissance man himself, Mr. Kobe Singleton. There you go. Tougaloo Strong.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing, my
All
brother?
right. Now this brother, I don't know where he go. I think I don't know where he went to. Brother Marcus Banks. I think he jumped out. His internet must be messing up or something. But he's another brother that has been in the trenches with us, providing the food for Friday Night Hoops. He's worked in multiple capacities, different municipalities, working direct with people, and he definitely bring a different perspective and being able to talk about some of the things he's seen and the NBA to ask some questions. So, Marcus, if you can't get back on, Fred, we all ears, brother. Talk to us.
Okay. Well, now, as you all recall, the last time that I was on like Nightcap Knowledge, we were kind of doing just kind of talking about forensic psychology. And of course, I had explained that forensic psychology refers to the intersection between mental health and the legal system. And then, of course, I was sharing that forensic settings, and I choose to define forensic settings as anywhere that this intersection is likely to occur. And so, places that this intersection is likely to occur are prisons, jails, the forensic hospitals, as well as in the courtroom. And so, now with regard to forensic settings, and you might ask yourself, well, how did we get into this with regard to trying to provide mental health services in these type of settings? Because of course we also discussed at the last Nightcap Knowledge, in which I was present, that the largest provider of mental health services in the United States is the prison systems. Okay, so now how did we get to this point? Well, it all started with the deinstitutionalization movement of the 1960s. Okay. And of course, deinstitutionalization in sociology refers to the movement that advocates the transfer of those that have mental health issues or have been diagnosed with mental health disorders. It advocates for the transfer of these people from public or private institutions, such as psychiatric hospitals, back to their families or into community-based homes. And so now this deinstitutionalization movement started around the 1960s. And so what it did, it shut down a lot of the largest treatment facilities for people that have mental illnesses. And of course, these were the psychiatric hospitals, especially like state-run psychiatric hospitals. And so with this movement shutting down a lot of the treatment facilities, coupled with already a lack of community resources to treat them, this resulted in a lot of the people that needed treatment going to prisons and jails instead. And so there was one study that showed that this trend accounted for about 7% of the prison population growth from 1980 to 2000, which represented about 40,000 to 72,000 people in prisons who would have likely gone to a mental health hospital in the past. And so that's how this kind of all got started. And of course, mental illnesses among today's inmates is also pervasive, where you have about 64% of jail inmates, 54% of state prisoners, and then 45% of federal prisoners are reporting mental health concerns. And then, of course, you also have substance abuse is also rampant, and then it co-occurs with a lot of these severe and persistent mental illnesses. And so that's kind of how that all got started, where a lot of people who would have gone into the psychiatric hospitals ended up in the prison system. And my personal opinion is that even when it was decided that people should transition from the psychiatric hospitals to the community, my personal opinion is that the community probably should have had resources available, or maybe our legislatures or our community activists. And like I said, I don't really know who would be responsible for that, but there probably should have been some type of community mental health network in place. And so we basically discharged all of these people from the hospital and didn't have a community mental health system in place. And so, of course, they ended up committing crimes, unfortunately, and ended up back in the prison system and in the jail system. And so that's kind of how all of this got started.
So on this panel, on this group right here, we have some brothers, and bring some a little bit more information. The United States has the largest concentrated group of black folks locked up in prison, black men especially. So the United States also has the largest amount of people in the world in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost safe to say that black men make up the most people that are in prison around the world. Mm-hmm. So when you start talking about this, you could just think about someone who has come from, it's people like to use humble beginning, but they from poor communities, impoverished communities, low income communities, and something happens. Instead of them getting help, they end up going in the prison system. Mm-hmm. So we got two brothers here. I definitely want to, first of all, have you ever heard of forensic psychology? If so, how do you feel about the information that Fred just gave us? Anybody want to jump off? Kobe, you want to
go? Yeah. Well, when we talk about forensic science, in relation to, we all know that it's a system that's set up by design, and there are some things and there are ways that they use these doctrines and professions to help support the other. In regards to, and I'll divulge this, I used to work for the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. And one of the reasons that I stepped away from that agency was because I saw such a high number of African American males that, I was helping to convict, and it just didn't feel good. Not only that, attempting to be a public figure, a singer, the same people that I just arrested 2 weeks ago are showing up at the show. How does that go over? So yeah, I understand the severity of what you're saying. I've traveled around the world as well and have seen that to be true. Just what you said, Dr. Smith, in regards to how other countries and nations set up their penal systems. I mean, like even in Japan, who has one of the lowest crime rates of a country, of many countries around the world. What are they doing? What are they doing that works so well that circumvents such a high number of people from going to jail?
Mm-hmm.
And why have we not been able to indoctrinate those same types of traits? Why? Because the American society has realized, or the powers that be have realized what it takes to make money and how to make money off of its citizens. So it's sad that forensics as a whole is being used to help incarcerate so many of our people. And I don't mean that just black people of color especially.
Well, I just piggyback on Mr. Singleton. I definitely agree. I think the system has definitely been designed to just hold us back for so long. Like you said, being incarcerated, different things that we try to do, just get took for granted. We get our kindness and our niceness took for granted sometimes, to the point where we might end up to another point of life where somewhere we shouldn't be. So I definitely agree.
And then also, I just want to just add really quickly, there was some research done in 2011 that found that about 40% of those behind bars were African American, although African Americans and others of African descent make up only about 13.2% of the U.S. population. And then the study also found that Hispanics are also overrepresented in prison at 20% of the prison population, compared to only being or only representing 17.1% of the US population. So you have to ask yourself, how do we go from being the minority in the US population to being the majority in the prison settings?
So also in 2011, Mississippi was given a letter grade F for institutionalized 65% of their mentally ill.
Mhm.
And at the same time, one of the conservative legislatures in the state changed some language where these institutions could have a way out. And what they did was they made a law that stated that the group homes had to keep at least 20% of their budget in their account at all
Mhm.
times, or connect with a larger entity like one of these larger facilities. Where
Mhm.
it didn't help the group home, it really helped the facility, because now they can say that, hey, we have community-based practice.
Mhm.
But in 2011, at the same time, when they were getting the stats about prison, Mississippi was given a letter grade F for institutionalized 65% of their mentally ill.
Mhm. And
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but then you also have to think about the length of time that some of these people, and I'm not advocating for keeping people in the hospital, but what I wanted to just mention is that some of these people had been institutionalized in the psychiatric hospital for many years. And for some of them, this is what actually was keeping them alive, especially when you think about people who had severe and profound intellectual disabilities that needed 24-hour skilled nursing care. And so the only way that they could have survived was being in the hospital to receive this nursing care. And so when, because of course, the Department of Justice had sued several states with regard to holding people in the psychiatric facilities for, a lengthy amount of time. And so what these some of these state hospital systems did, they closed their facilities, and then they discharged these people out to the community that was not prepared to manage or provide resources or even suitable living situations. And unfortunately, some of these people that required that 24-hour skilled nursing care, they passed away because they had lived in these hospitals for so many years, and that was their sole source for survival. Because, like I said earlier, the community mental health network was pretty much non-existent, and all of their psychiatric care was provided by the psychiatric hospitals.
Dr. Smith, one of the biggest things that I've seen as a licensed massage therapist, that also has contributed to such a high number of unnecessary people being in places that they really don't need to be. Just recently, licensed massage therapists are considered to be now healthcare providers.
Okay.
And then we talk about the DSM-5s,
Mm-hmm.
which have to deal with your mental disorders, which can. There have not been a lot of studies on this, but there have been studies that show that actual massage therapy does help in contributing and limiting the type of side effects that comes with certain mental disorders. So
Mm-hmm.
that also, is part of the catch 22 to what has been happening, with people being, like you said, kept in places that they don't need to be kept, or given unnecessary medicines, or medicated to the levels that they don't need to be medicated, when you could have just sent them out to a healthcare provider, i.e., now licensed massage therapist, to help potentially subside some of the side effects that come from those potential mental disorders.
So bringing more context to that is like sensory. So supposed to, those that suffer from certain illnesses, especially like autism,
Mm-hmm.
it's about sensory, touch, feel, those things. A lot of folks that we're talking about suffer from different traumas.
Mm-hmm.
They've been isolated. I'm talking about, when I say isolated, you got folks that have been locked in closets as children, right?
Absolutely.
Locked away, and they grow up to be an adult. They look like you and I, but you don't know things that they have been through and how they've been affected. and wonder why they act the way they act or what's going on with them. There's and in our society, from what I've seen, those who do not quote unquote have a mental illness is a large to blame in how we react to those who do. Folks belittle, they make fun,
Yeah.
they provoke, they do a lot of different things to see someone act out, act up. Um, the thing about it is this person don't have a cutoff. They don't know how to shut it down. So once they
Hmm.
start rolling, it's over with. They're like, I can't believe they did it. I only did this, but you kicked it off. You
Hmm.
know, if you had left them, if you hadn't bothered a person that wasn't bothering you, we wouldn't have seen this situation pop off like that. So proactively educating folks about massage therapy, chiropractic therapy, yoga, meditation, all these different alternative ways for us dealing with stress and dealing with things that are bothering you on your mind. Um, Anything that helps prevent people from doing what we say is snapping.
Right.
That small little time frame of that mental break when they snap, and then by the time they get it all out and calm down, and it's looking like a tornado's been through,
Hmm.
and then you're looking like, well, damn, someone could have just been able to assist them prior to.
Right.
Marcus, you got any feedback? Have you witnessed anything like this? And somebody from South Korea.
Yeah, I mean, I witnessed a lot of it. Just by I used to work at the detention center over here in Young for a period of time, so just witnessing some of those young men that was, in there locked up and for some of the things that they was in there for, I was like, it just shows that the conversation we having tonight that just how things can trickle down
Hmm.
to our youth and make
Mhm.
our youth think that the things that they see are actually the way to live, or to it's issues that's going on, but they don't have the right stomping ground or the right foundation in front of them to help them create their own path. So they're basically creating a path that's already been created. So I feel like there could be a mental, well, I ain't gonna say completely a mental issue, but it's definitely a health issue to the point where our young men, we got to bring them back, but we losing them to things that they're seeing or the environment that they're around. So um, mental health is definitely a big issue in our society today, because we don't know how to cope with it. We don't know how to deal with it.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
and,
And see,
and,
we're
and, and
still in
so
the.
those are just
Oh
no, I'm
no, I'm
just
just.
telling everybody what we got. Dr. Fred on doing talking about forensic psychology for those who just jumped on. Go ahead. Go ahead, Fred.
I was just going to add that we're still in a mental health crisis even now. That was pretty much exacerbated, especially with the advent of COVID. It just pretty much got exacerbated. It got inflated, amplified, and so even now, even for those that are not incarcerated, it's difficult for us as mental health providers to even keep up with the demand of people even now coming in for mental health treatment. And these are people that are not even incarcerated. And so just imagine the prisons and the jails, which have even less mental health professionals on staff in that area. And then you have people in the jail, in the prison, that are experiencing all of these different mental health symptoms with no provider to try to help establish and maintain care and treatment.
Dr. Smith,
Yeah.
I find it really odd, or unique, I should say odd and unique, that also, and this may be something that Brother Banks will touch on even more, but a lot of the things that I've seen, even as a licensed massage therapist, and I'm fairly new to the field in regards to psychological, mental health, which all correspond or correlate to one another, have to do also with what America is feeding its people. We feed us so much enriched flour or uh, genetically modified organics, which has its twist in how it can be manipulated in regards to organic, the word organic. What we're feeding people, the things that they're tainting in the milk, or it's just unreal. And these things, the food alone, are some of the leading causes of what is mentally happening with American, i.e., Alzheimer's or uh, uh, dementia, just to name a few things. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and see there, and like I tell my clients all the time, there is no difference in mental illnesses and physical illnesses, where mental illnesses can beget physical illnesses can beget mental illnesses. It's all the same. And there, even in the DSM, which is the manual that we use to provide diagnoses for each different, because of course the mental health disorders are classified in different categories, where you have, schizophrenia and other psychotic disorders, and then you have depressive disorders, you have anxiety disorders, you have obsessive compulsive related disorders, and then you have trauma and stress related disorders and personality disorders and other categories of disorders. But for nearly each of those specific categories, you have the disorder due to a general medical condition, anxiety due to a general medical condition, depression due to a general medical condition, psychotic disorder due to a general medical condition. Where when we give that diagnosis, it's because the mental health symptoms are directly related to the medical condition. A few years ago, I was doing some psych testing and found out that this young man, um, I gave him his final diagnosis was bipolar and related disorder due to head trauma, because he fell and hit his head, had a concussion, and then he started having these depressive and manic symptoms, and it was because of the head trauma. So there is no difference. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Free, I got a personal note to tell you about that. But we have Miss Marta talked about the misdiagnoses that happen in poor communities, and by education is connected with mental health, and the challenges. So I talk about this all the time. How you can have a blue collar black man, a black man who works a blue collar job, and then you have a white man who works a white collar job. They have the same type of symptoms. One get diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorders, and get diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I always talk about with our seniors, and I say my scope is I work with a lot of children and adolescents. I work with seniors. When you're and Kobe knows this too. When your chemical balances are off, meaning sodium level, UTI,
Mm-hmm.
sugar, anything like that, it can induce what seem to be temporary psychosis in someone, and they are quick to want to diagnose an older person with a dementia or some type of other problem when it's really their body's not balanced.
Mm-hmm.
They got a kidney infection, and due to the kidney infection, it's causing them to act differently. Their sodium level is off, or their sugar level is off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this could be happening for a while because they've been misdiagnosed. From the health standpoint, they don't have the right medication, so they are carrying on and acting the way. And when they get their medication stabilized and diet changed or whatever the case, maybe you see a different person. But they are ready to give someone a long-term diagnosis, um, with something that has a temporary fix. And what I was saying, personally, family member we talked about, who's diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's when he was a teenager, was hit in the back of the head with an axe. And growing up in small towns, they didn't want black folks to go to the doctor anyway. They want you to go to work. That's all they want you to do. So it never was done any, really researched, find out what's going on. And people want to tell you that there's no connection between someone being hit in the back of the head with an axe and then for them having dementia now at
Mm-hmm.
70 plus years old. Um, and we talk about CTE is a real thing. So it's a lot of people that have had head traumas, and that head trauma, it may not be immediate, but over time it progresses, and you see the difference in their behavior and personality, but the two are not connected. So I'm one of those people that every time someone have an accident, especially when they get rear-ended, I always tell people to go to the doctor to get checked out.
Mhm.
Get
Absolutely.
your MRIs, get your CAT scans done. Oh, but
Right.
I'm fine. Yeah, but you bump your head against the thing and you ain't notice, or you have a
Mhm.
real hard impact and you never knew what happened, how it affected you. Another thing, Fred, do and that it goes back to tricky trend asking, do some developmental after being locked up for a long time? What do you think, Fred? Or what
That
your
is
research saw?
definitely, I was just saying, that is definitely possible, especially when you think about the poor conditions in the prison system, poor conditions, and then the um, there is the large possible chance that you could be assaulted in prison, you could be raped in prison. All of these different atrocities can occur in the prison system. Okay. And then, of course, you're being, depending on whatever type of crime you were found guilty of, you could be put in segregation for lengthy periods of time. And so all of those things are negative, adverse, and traumatic experiences. Okay. And so, of course, when you experience negative, traumatic, and adverse situations, or we have these type of experiences, those can increase your risk for developing certain mental health conditions like adjustment disorders, anxiety disorders, trauma and stressor related disorders, PTSD, of course, even possibly developing psychotic disorders. And furthermore, we are,
Hmm.
as humans, we are social beings, and we have to be able to socialize in order to thrive and function. And so when that's taken away from us, it affects our psyche.
Yeah. From working in a psych facility for almost 10 years, I've seen clients that come there for something totally different. And depending on what's going on in the unit, they sort of adapt to it. So you there for placement because you don't have anywhere to go.
Hmm.
But you got ex gang members on the unit and they fighting all the time.
Hmm.
So you see that person's behavior
Right.
change socially to want to fit in with this new group of folks, even though you were there for something totally different.
Hmm.
So now when you do discharge and leave out, you're gonna have a whole nother issue that you got that you didn't come in with because
Right.
it become, and I always talk about environmentally induced behavior.
Hmm.
And they have a diagnosis for those who are veterans called failure to adjust to civilian lifestyle, other than giving them the diagnosis of PTSD. That also can go for someone that's been incarcerated with their failure to adjust to the civilian lifestyle because you've been institutionalized and you're used to folks telling you this and they don't know how to function.
Hmm.
Because again, just like talking about mentally ill, you got folks that was locked up and when they get out, they
Right.
don't have the options of have a certain type of system. So they're gonna be limited what they can do. And nine times out
Right.
of 10, those halfway houses are right back in the same environment which they got locked up in. So that brother
Right.
can't that brother might not be able to go become a massage therapist like Kobe
Hmm.
because he's not gonna make the background. You can't get financial support through like financial aid because of whatever you were charged with. And so what we are talking about right now, we're talking about how a lot of folks end up in prison, but also we talk about how the prison house a lot of folks that suffer from mental illness and they should not have
Hmm.
been in prison in the first place. But the second
Right.
part of the conversation is talk about how prison systems and relate to forensic psychology creates some of the problems that we see
Hmm.
when and they have a mental illness when they do discharge or when they get out of prison. And so we just talking about the connections. Why, as we stated, Black folks, Black men make up the largest population in the prison system in the United States. The United States make up the largest population of the prison system in the world.
Hmm.
So this is important. is very, very important. And we always you got brothers that have no mental illness, um, have a pretty nice, well lifestyle, and get misperceived by other people just because they look different.
Mhm.
And that person's life is changed in a drop of a hat because they afraid of Kobe because of how Kobe looked. So now Kobe life is going to change dramatically, no matter all the accomplishment he had. Now he's going to end up in a system. And what do you think they're going to do to somebody that's done all they could to keep their nose clean and create success? They end up in trouble. How do you think their personality is going to be the same when they
Right. Right.
end up locked up control? So Marcus, y'all got the swirl going on.
So I just got a question
Circle of
for
death.
Doctor Smith. I just got a
Can
question
you
for Doctor Smith. Can you hear me?
go ahead? Go ahead,
I just
Marcus.
had a question for Doctor Smith. Doctor Smith, I'm just sitting here thinking like, so what are some things as black men, as the black community, that we can introduce to the kids or introduce to people around us to help them. We know everybody's gonna have that phase of life, but
Mhm.
what can we do to kind of help them so it won't be so bad in our community, so it won't, so we can kind of go back to how it used to be. Not so bad as how it used to be, but we all can come together in a sense because it's been going on for so long. So what are some things that can take place with us that we can do to change some things?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we can do, and of course, that I'm speaking, directly to us as African Americans, and not to disregard other ethnicities, but for us as African Americans, we can continue to um, help reduce the stigma behind mental illnesses and increase awareness. Because, of course, mental illnesses are extremely stigmatized in our culture. We don't really believe in going and seeking mental health treatment. We don't do that. We go to church and we get us some Jesus, and we do all of these other things that I know you guys have heard, because I heard that at a
Hmm.
very young age,
Hmm.
very young age, that is just not something that we as African Americans do. We don't seek mental health treatment. And so a lot of us are reluctant. I have had African American clients tell me that I struggled for years with going to see a therapist, struggled with it. I wanted to do it, but then my family members told me not to do it. That's a waste of time. You're not crazy. You don't need to do that. And so when people make those type of statements, that makes us further reluctant to seek out mental health treatment. Because, see, as I said in some previous podcasts, mental health disorders will always be with us in the same manner that physical health disorders will always be with us. They're not going to go away. They're not going to go away. And so, what we have to do, not just African Americans, but all cultures, we have to embrace it, and we have to be ready to provide treatment because it's not going anywhere. You can't just dismiss something that will not go away, especially in the state that we are in with regard to all the things that are going on in the world. There are about 6.2 million people in the United States that currently meet the criteria for generalized anxiety disorder. And considering all the things that are going on, it makes sense that people would be very anxious. You have COVID, which is still going on. You have inflation. You have homelessness, people having all these financial difficulties. Then you have all of this other traumatic situation that people experience, the war going on in Ukraine, crime, all of these negative, adverse, and traumatic events. So it's not like these different disorders are going to go anywhere. They've always been here. They always will be here in the same manner that cancer's always been here. Diabetes has always been here. Hypertension has always been here. Am I right or am I wrong?
Right.
And so we have to develop ways to provide care and treatment, and those that have been diagnosed or think that they might have these disorders be willing to receive some type of care. And we have to make it that people feel safe seeking this type of care, not putting somebody down or making fun of somebody because they may have a psychiatric illness. Because guess what? Just in the same manner that Joe could have bipolar disorder, so could I, or so could the next person. Mental illnesses have no respect of person. And just because I may have gotten past the age where bipolar disorder and schizophrenia typically set in, because it typically sets in late teens, early 20s. But just because I may have gotten past that age doesn't mean that I'm exempt from developing dementia later in life. So we have to be a little bit more compassionate when it comes to people that have mental health disorders, because it could be me, it could be you, it could be my mother, it could be my father, my aunt, my uncle, my sister, my brother, my kids, my spouse. It could be any one of those. And so we have to say that it is okay to receive mental health treatment. And with the amount of people, the elderly population, they are living longer. They're living longer. And so that's going to put a lot of people in the elderly population at risk for developing dementia. And so we have to be able to rise to the occasion and deal with that as it comes.
Dr. Smith, one other question.
So
Yeah, I was just touching on I guess, do you feel like a lot of this has to do with a systemic lack of knowledge in our culture, of not knowing that the or not associating that things like alcoholism are things that also can potentially lead to mental disorders that potentially, like, it's a trickle down system.
Absolutely. Because, see, remember earlier I was just talking about those different categories of mental health disorders and how for each category there is a diagnosis of the disorder due to a general medical condition. In those same categories, you have substance induced in whatever the category is. Okay, substance induced bipolar and related disorder, substance induced depressive disorder, substance induced anxiety disorder. Okay, so using substances can definitely increase our risk for developing mental health disorders. Okay, and think about hallucinogens. What do they cause us to experience if we go out and ingest a hallucinogen?
yeah,
Hallucinations, which is one of the symptoms of schizophrenia. So we have to be very careful with what we're putting into our bodies. I remember several years ago, I was working at a psychiatric facility for children and adolescents. And there was this kid, he was about 16. He came in, he told me, I smoked marijuana one time, and I've been hearing voices ever since.
So let me clarify with that too. All right. So it's the difference between medical marijuana, those that use is used to treat anxiety, depression, and dementia, cancer, and street pharmacy drugs that is used to gateway. So I had a client, young white girl, came from Memphis. When the clients first come, they got to do a drug test at the facility. She came in and she said, "Mr. Mack, I test positive for cocaine and crystal meth. I have never done anything but smoke weed." She tests positive for crystal meth and cocaine. Never done anything but smoke weed. And so we're trying to help folks understand the difference between the health side of the plant and what somebody and the face of the folks that the news like Fox give or other places give is going to be a black man with dreadlocks and tattoos. But for somebody to take a chemical and put it in a plant to where you don't notice it, that takes some DRs and some other letters behind your name to figure that type of stuff out, right? But that's not the face that gets this burden, and so we trying to when you have uh, teenager, my daughter's 17, Marcus' daughter's 17, hell, Kobe, your child what, 17, 16, 17,
No, bro, she's 13, man.
13, right? Still at that age, 13, and you are out hanging out with friends, and next thing you know, you don't know what to happen because you just inhale one time because it's not the stuff that helps you, it's the stuff that hurts you that someone has doctored up. Uh, and we know everybody know from, and you got to have a mix of intellectual conversation with real life street conversation. That there's people out there that take, and for those who don't know the terms, I'll break it down. They take embalming fluid, the same stuff that you put into dead bodies, and they soak their cigarettes or marijuana cigarettes or blunts in, and they smoke it. The thing is, they know they're smoking it. The thing is, you don't know you smoking it.
Mhm.
And Marcus, and next thing you know, you looking wonders and trying to figure out what happened to you. If you are able to bring your mind back to a sane position where you know that something went wrong, some people don't come back. They don't, you know. And you see it in small towns and in areas where someone that has a mental illness or intellectual disability who need to be somewhere being taken care of are walking the streets, and they are hanging out with the folks that are out there in the streets doing what they're doing, and they want
Mhm.
to see, you know what, I want to see how they gonna react, and they giving them this type of stuff
Right.
just to see how they respond.
Mhm.
Um,
And see, just to add, when you let's take just a few moments to talk about the human brain. Okay.
okay,
So the human brain is the most complex organ in the body. Okay. And it is the center of all human activity. You need it to drive a car, you need it to enjoy a meal, you need it to breathe, you need it to create an artistic masterpiece, you need it to enjoy everyday activities, you need it to do what we're doing right now. Okay. And so it is responsible for not just your breathing or your heartbeat or your digestive system. It's also responsible for your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, how you react, how you respond, how you perceive information. And so when you think about different types of substances, drugs, not just drugs, but even alcohol as well, drugs interfere with the way the brain neurons send and receive and process signals via the neurotransmitters. Okay. And neurotransmitters, and of course, there are 6 major neurotransmitters in the brain. You have dopamine, serotonin, GABA, glutamate, acetylcholine, and norepinephrine. Okay. And so the neurons, which are the brain nerve cells, they don't touch. There is a microscopic space in between the neurons called a synapse. And so there has to be a way to get that electrical brain activity from this neuron to this one across that synapse. And that's what the neurotransmitters do. They transmit that electrical activity across that synapse to the other neurons. And the drugs can alter the neurotransmitter activity And some drugs, such as marijuana and heroin, it can activate neurons because their chemical structure mimics that of the natural neurotransmitter in the body. And so the drugs attach to the neuron, okay? And so, and although these drugs might mimic the brain's own chemicals, they don't activate neurons in the same way as the natural neurotransmitter. And then they can lead to abnormal messages being sent through these networks. Not normal messages, but abnormal messages. Okay. And so we have to be careful at what we are putting into our bodies.
You, you know what the biggest drug in the world? I know Kobe know. What's the biggest drug in the world, Dr. Fred? You want to guess?
I, I would take a guess. I would guess maybe either marijuana or caffeine.
Sugar.
Sugar.
Sugar alters more brain chemistry than anything else. And we
Mhm.
are introduced to sugar at a younger age. Sugar is
Yeah.
harder to kick than any type of other stimulant for us, drug or alcohol. It is natural for us to eat sugar.
Mhm.
It's natural. And one of the major reasons we suffer from so many health problems is because we have a diet that has a lot of white sugar, high fructose corn syrup, sugar. And it's hard for folks to kick that. And I tell everybody, if you ever go to your church in a small town, you see that deacon a pocket full of Jolly Ranchers. He used to drink. Now he's changed his life, but he understand when he was drinking, he didn't have diabetes. Now he got diabetes because he's eating these candy, and he don't know why. So he's filling that void of not drinking by eating candy, but the candy is doing him more harm than the alcohol was. He had the bigger ass with the alcohol, but he didn't have diabetes. So and so we were trying to tell folks that the thing that people look over the most that causes the biggest problem
Mhm.
is our diet, and it's a poor diet, and it has a lot of sodium and sugar, and
Mhm.
it's something we ingest all the time. Because guess what? Majority of the folks would say, well, when you get older, you're just gonna have high blood pressure and diabetes. It's just part of life and living. So we're quick to accept that over anything else. Now, understanding that high diabetes and sodium, high blood pressure relates to different type of, again, temporary psychosis and how it alter the brain chemistry when that's off. And so those things are not connected. So when I used to do assessment, I used to have those clients 70 plus years old come in. And I asked them, I said, would you eat 9 teaspoons of sugar for me? No, why would I do that? I said, well, you just told me you drank 3 Cokes a day.
Mhm.
They, and they looked at me. I said, it's 9.5 teaspoons of sugar in each 12-ounce Coke. And they looked at me with that look. I didn't know that. I said, because they didn't want you to know it. They told you it was 13 grams of sugar. They didn't teach you how to convert grams to teaspoons. So, but in community organizing, we learned that you speak to everybody on a third grade level. So when
Mhm.
you break things down to people, that's educating. Majority of things in our society don't break things down intentionally because they don't want you to be educated on what's going on. They just want to tell you to do it
Mhm.
because they can really explain it to you if they wanted to, but they don't. So those some preventative measures. So and by choice, we real quick. So you got one chef on here.
He froze.
All right.
Did we lose him?
No, he
No,
froze.
I'm still here. Max Pro.
Yeah, Mac froze.
The
Yeah.
diet. Are we all freezing?
You must
The
got nah.
internet
It's
guys
just
don't
you.
It's
It's
you.
want
just
us to
you.
talk
You
about
must.
this good stuff. So we got four health and mental illness and how we want to change things, and then the internet start messing up. Yeah,
You must got
okay,
broadband
bro.
over there, dial up.
Um, hey man, I'm telling you, they hate on us. They don't want to talk this good shit. So talk real quickly, Fred, about your knowledge about how the food helps with certain things, and then also highlight about massage therapy. What you know about massage therapy when it comes to working with those who might be suffering from things like anxiety, stress, or any other type of diagnosis. And then we're gonna close out.
You're asking me or the chef and the massage therapist? What, it looks like
Fred,
you.
I think he wants you to give us some
I'm asking
advice
you.
on how to carry ourselves
Yeah,
as
yeah.
we
How
doing the
massage
things that we
therapy?
like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we like to do every day. So give
Okay.
us some
How that
feedback how we
help
can
other
be better
people?
to our
How their
community as
talents help
well.
other folks?
Oh well, yeah.
Yeah.
Just I would say starting with food, just encouraging people to eat healthy and to be aware of what they're consuming and what things they are putting in their bodies. Being aware of all of these additives, all of the sugar, all of these other chemicals that are often placed in different foods. Because see that, like we were talking earlier about different drugs, and about other things that we put in our body that can affect our brain and our neurotransmitter activity and the neuronal activity. We have to be aware of these things that we are putting in our bodies, and that can include different types of food that we eat. Okay. So definitely being aware of that, and that if we continue to ingest certain foods, that can increase our risk for developing different medical conditions that can lead to different mental health conditions. Because remember, I was just talking earlier about how physical illnesses can beget mental illnesses and vice versa. Okay. So we have to be aware of things that we put in our body that could increase our risk for developing certain physical illnesses, thereby leading to increased risk for various mental illnesses. Okay. So that's one thing. And then with regard to massage therapy, I treat a lot of clients with anxiety. And one behavioral treatment for anxiety is relaxation. Okay. And of course, there are different techniques that can come along with relaxation. Of course, we have progressive muscle relaxation, we have abdominal breathing, we have imagery techniques, and these techniques have been found to be very effective. They're evidence based approaches that can help decrease a person's anxiety. And so, progressive muscle relaxation, where we require the person to tense different muscle groups in order to help tense and release different muscle groups in the body in order for them to experience a decrease in anxiety. And then massage therapy, that's directly related. Because, see, number one of the symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder is muscle tension. Okay. What do massage therapists do with regard to muscle tension?
Muscle manipulation.
Right. So if those muscles can be manipulated, that can lead to a decrease in the anxiety. So that's a direct relation right there. Yeah. So obviously, we all have work to do.
Man, listen, I definitely appreciate you guys for coming on. We want to shed this light of intentionally having this conversation. A lot of times, folks say what black men should be doing. So, the only thing I ask is, when you say black men should be doing it, when they do it, support them. All right, create a space, create a room for them to be able to do it, for us to be able to carry these conversations out, because it's not an easy task, and being able to work out things. And I seen the sister was talking about, for us to talk down when we see our folks doing something, and to encourage them not to participate. Folks get, and my uncle would say, fighting mad with you when you trying to tell them what to do, even if it's about to save their life. They don't want to hear it. But we are been working with things in the community, and using some of the talents that they have in their profession, from doing free massages as a part of the therapeutic team, for people that are in need, from doing food for Friday night hoops, to to give these young guys somewhere to hang out from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. And being able to make breakthroughs as many ways as we can. Um, um, we have definitely got to continue to do this work. And big shout out to Dr. Fred for coming in and breaking it down. People do not break down the things about mental health, about psych, and helping folks understand the different parts of it and brain and how the brain works and reacts. When we start to say we use vague terms and don't explain it to people where they can ingest it. So for all those that's watching, those that have watched, explain it to other people. Let this is designed for knowledge base, and everybody on here has a business. So if you want to get in touch with Dr. Fred, you can find him at ThriveWorks. He can, if you're in the Chicago area, if you want to do some consulting or something like that, and you still do his email works. He just picked up another because he just said this profession has is lacking. It need more good people. So make sure you reach out to them. We got a brother at the bottom. You got B&B Barbecue Catering. The brother takes pride in preparing a good, healthy meal. So you can reach out to him. You can find him on Facebook, Marcus Bank, inboxing. Or his alter ego is Bubbles Lawn Care and Landscaping. Again, scenery. When you can go outside and sit on your porch and you look and you see something nice and you feel good about it, it helps you relax. It helps you feel good. Brother Kobe, if you name it, Kobe does it. Reach out to him. Um, if we know that music is the universal language. So this brother, he performs his own, he creates his own. He is living, breathing, being your best me. So you reach out to brother Kobe, also licensed massage therapist, um, and not afraid to slang some drinks and jump on that tractor. So the brother's all about making money and taking care of his needs and other folks' needs. So we are here. Big shout out to DJ George Chuck. If you're looking for him, you need somebody to do everything in entertainment, holla DJ George Chuck. He's out there. DJ George Chuck on all social media platforms. And TBC, Tonya Boyd Cannon, always ready to perform, always ready to teach. Her music is art, and she helps children heal every day by using the art of music and as a form of art therapy. So she's been dedicated to the process. So follow her, Tonya Boyd Cannon. Oh, there she go. She just jumped in there. When you speak about it, she y'all. So we're gonna we not. And we're gonna try to get to where the money reside. I don't have no music. I don't know if Chuck's still out there and if he can play it, but we're gonna try to get to where the money reside because we know for some of us, if we can get a little bit more money, it'll help solve a little bit more problems. Other than that, I tell everybody thanks for